Hi and welcome. I'm Andy Mioch and you are watching A News. Here are the headlines. World reacts to Donald Trump's call to resume U.S. nuclear testing. Turkey announces Gaza meeting amid ceasefire concerns. Death toll from Hurricane Melissa rises as search and rescue efforts continue in the Caribbean. Thank you for tuning in. The United Nations has raised concerns over U.S. President Donald Trump's order to resume nuclear weapons testing. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said nuclear testing should never be permitted under any circumstances. Meanwhile, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance defended the decision, calling it an important step toward ensuring national security.
We have a big arsenal, obviously. The Russians have a large nuclear arsenal. The Chinese have a large nuclear arsenal. Sometimes you've got to test it to make sure that it's functioning and working properly. We've been working very closely, even with nations that we don't have the best relations with, to try to limit nuclear proliferation. The president's going to keep on working on that, but it's an important part of American national security to make sure that this nuclear arsenal we have actually functions properly, and that's part of a testing regime. To be clear, we know that it does work properly, but you got to keep on top of it over time, and the president just wants to make sure that we do that.
Another reaction comes from Tehran. Iran has rebuked U.S. plans for nuclear tests, citing hypocrisy over peaceful nuclear program accusations. Tehran called Donald Trump's move regressive and irresponsible. Artura Shiralilu brings more from the Iranian capital.
Iran's top diplomat Abbas Araghchi slammed the United States for deciding to restart testing of nuclear weapons, accusing it as a nuclear-armed country, which proved to be a bully after rebranding its Department of Defense to the Department of War. In a post on his X account, he said that in a blatant violation of international law, the U.S. has been demonizing Iran's peaceful nuclear program and threatening further strikes on Tehran's safeguarded nuclear sites after the 12-day war in June. Araghchi's statement came after U.S. President Donald Trump instructed Pentagon this week to immediately restart testing of nuclear weapons because of advances in other countries' testing programs, making a reference to China and Russia. According to Araghchi, the U.S. announcement on the resumption of nuclear tests is a regressive and irresponsible move and a serious threat to international peace and security. In a rare direct rebuke of President Trump, the UN has warned of a nuclear escalation risk after U.S. chief executive ordered new tests of atomic weapons. Also in Tehran, Foreign Ministry spokesman Esmail Baqai, in an interview with Al Jazeera TV, urged Director General of International Atomic Energy Agency Rafael Grossi to avoid unfounded remarks on Iran's civilian nuclear program. In response to Grossi's statement on renewed activities at Iran's nuclear sites, the spokesman reiterated that the tragic statements of the IAEA chief paved the way for the Israeli and U.S. military aggression last June. The IAEA chief has rejected Tehran's criticism that the report by the agency's Board of Governors served as a pretext to bomb Iran's civilian nuclear sites under U.S. safeguards. Turaj Shiralilu, Tehran, A News.
Still with the United States, Washington signed a 10-year defense framework with New Delhi, which includes information sharing and technology cooperation between the two nations. The pact was concluded during a meeting of defense ministers in Kuala Lumpur.
New 10-year defense framework, which we signed, is ambitious. It's a significant step for our two militaries, a roadmap for deeper and even more meaningful collaboration ahead. It underscores America's long-term commitment to our shared security and our strong partnership between our countries. We have a major defense partnership that is ongoing and made even more powerful by this agreement. So, sir, thank you very much.
Today, on the sidelines of the ASEAN Defense Ministers Meeting Plus, I am very happy to put a face to that voice. We will keep meeting. This occasion, we are signing the defense framework for 10 years, which I'm sure will open new doors for our defense relationship. Thank you so much. And also under your leadership, we will be able to do more bilaterally on the defense sector.
लीडरशिप में भारत और यूएस के रिश्ते
Joining us to talk on the significance and implications of the US-India Pact and other related events is Professor and Coordinator of International Studies at the State University of New York, Ivani Vasoler. Welcome. Thank you so much for being with us. Let's start with what was announced out of Kuala Lumpur. Hegseth said the deal will enhance coordination, information sharing, and tech cooperation, as well as advance regional stability and deterrence. What kind of tangible results do you expect from this framework?
So the pact that has been signed, right, a pact for 10 years, a defense pact between the United States and India, has the stated objective of increasing regional stability in the Indo-Pacific region. This is what the Secretary of Defense, now Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, declared during these meetings in the context of the ASEAN Conference, the Association of Southeast Nations. Obviously, United States seeks with this type of defense arrangement with India to increase U.S. influence in the region. And I should say, I think it's important to mention that this defense pact being signed today is a natural development of types of arrangements that United States is seeking for the last 20 years. For example, in 2004, United States was the proponent of something that's considered or called, the Quad. The Quad because are 4 countries cooperating with defense and technology, United States, Japan, Australia, and India. Happened that the Quad for a while was deactivated, so to speak, but in 2017, during President Trump's first term, he decided to reactivate Quad. That, again, is an agreement for security, technological cooperation, defense in the Indo-Pacific region. Now, with India, is a bilateral agreement, but is a way to strengthen U.S. goals of increasing its influence in that part of the world and obviously trying to achieve stability.
Do you see this agreement also helping to smooth out the tariffs issue and tensions over India's energy and arms imports from Russia?
There is no official word about this specific problem of the tariffs, but obviously it seems that, or many analysts believe, that the easing of the tensions because of the tariffs is a natural consequence of the contacts established recently in the last few days between the Secretary of War of the United States, Peter Hegseth, and the authorities in India. In other words, yes, more diplomatic talks could reduce the tensions that were created some weeks ago when the government of the United States decided to impose tariffs of 50% on India because of its imports of oil from Russia.
Well, this signing came as the U.S. is adjusting its troop presence on NATO's eastern flank. Just days ago, Bucharest confirmed that Washington is drawing down troops as it intends to focus on the Indo-Pacific region. There are also reports that the U.S. has notified allies it will also reduce the number of troops in Bulgaria, Hungary, and Slovakia by mid-December. What do you expect from the changing American military posture?
Something that was expected for quite some time. There is a consensus in the U.S. government, or at least among several policymakers, about the importance of U.S. to concentrate more of its efforts in terms of defense, in terms of cooperation with the Asian region overall, and less in its traditional allies in Europe. So the U.S. now is fully involved in the Middle East situation, has obviously a very important, almost existential geopolitical dispute with China, and in the view of these policymakers, and particularly the Trump administration, United States must turn its eyes and turn its resources to Asia.
Well, we've seen
That
the
part of the world.
Trump-Xi talks the other day following their meeting. U.S. and Chinese defense ministers met in Kuala Lumpur. Beijing issued a warning to Washington to exercise caution in its words and actions regarding Taiwan. Do you see anything changing between these two superpowers when it comes to Taiwan?
To Taiwan, obviously, is a very important issue in the relationship between United States and China, and everybody knows, we know that this has been a point of tension between these two countries, and part of this decision of the U.S. government to concentrate most of its efforts, military defense efforts, on Asia is precisely because of the situation of Taiwan. Much has been said about detention. Much has been speculated about the possibility of a war between the two countries, but obviously it is clear that it's not in the interest of China, it's not in the interest of the United States to go for an armed conflict between the two countries. Part of these initiatives of United States to reinforce ties, defense ties with India, with Philippines, with Thailand, for example, is precisely to try to avoid what would be the unthinkable or the worst case scenario, a military confrontation between China and the United States. So at this point, the United States is looking for allies in Asia.
And finally, I would like to hear your thoughts on Trump's order to resume nuclear testing. This, of course, came after Russia tested its new nuclear-capable super torpedo.
Well, the news, I think, was shocking. Obviously, around the world, there have been many statements condemning the decision. It is unclear exactly what the United States is going to do regarding resuming this atomic weapons testing. Nothing has been said so far when and how. The public statements, including President Trump's public statement, that Russia is an important nuclear weapons country. China is growing its nuclear arsenal. And according to him, in the light of these developments, the United States cannot fall behind. This was his public statement about that, and this was confirmed by Vice President Vance. But we are still expecting more information about the specifics of nuclear testing, because it's something that does not happen in the world for the last 3 decades. So this was so shocking, the decision of the US government when this announcement was made.
Ivani, thank you so much for joining us and providing us with your insight.
Thank you for inviting me.
Over in the east of Europe, Polish fighter jets have intercepted a Russian reconnaissance plane over the Baltic Sea on Thursday, the second such incident this week. Polish defense minister confirmed that jets were scrambled after detecting the Russian plane flying in international airspace. The Polish Army Operational Command later described the incident and published multiple photos of the intercepted plane. Russia has launched another overnight attack on the northeastern Ukrainian city of Sumy, injuring 11 people, including 4 children, according to Ukrainian officials. The strikes damaged homes and a railway depot. In the eastern city of Slovyansk, a Russian bomb hit a thermal power plant on Thursday, killing at least 3 people.
The strike was complex, a combined, deliberately calculated one, designed to make it difficult to counter. There were missiles, including ballistic ones, and air-launched ballistic types. In total, 52 missiles and more than 600 strike drones were launched, around 400 of them Shahids. Most of the drones were neutralized, and 2/3 of the missiles were also shot down. This is outright terror. Normal countries don't wage war like this, and the world must respond appropriately to such Russian warfare.
Russia, on the other hand, claims Ukraine carried out a drone strike on a power plant in the western city of Oryol, saying it damaged a heat pipeline, forcing authorities to restrict heating and hot water supplies. The incident comes in the middle of a surge in cross-border attacks on energy infrastructure as both sides intensify pressure, with a ceasefire remaining elusive. Over in Moldova, Alexandru Munteanu has been elected as the new prime minister after the country's parliament in Chisinau backed his nomination. The pro-European economist and investment firm founder has spent nearly 2 decades working abroad and has no previous political experience. His appointment marks another step in Moldova's push toward closer ties with the European Union as the country continues to distance itself from Russian influence. As the fragile truce in Gaza holds, Turkey is set to host several foreign ministers in Istanbul on Monday to discuss the ceasefire and steps for a possible stabilization force. Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan announced the meeting following talks with his Estonian counterpart in Ankara. He said the talks would gather foreign ministers of countries that took part in a meeting with US President Donald Trump in New York in September, including Turkey, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, the UAE, Jordan, Pakistan, and Indonesia. Both ministers called for stronger international efforts to ensure humanitarian access and maintain peace.
Firstly, negotiations with the parties are continually ongoing to ensure the ceasefire remains in place and to avoid misunderstandings. Necessary efforts are underway to ensure the inflow of humanitarian aid. Furthermore, how to proceed to the second phase, how to implement Stability Force and other peace plan specified bodies are currently under discussion with guarantor countries. Some are in advanced discussions, while others are in the early stages.
The humanitarian situation in Gaza is truly catastrophic, and significant pressure must be applied on Israel. We thank Turkey once again for its efforts regarding Gaza. Estonia continues delivering humanitarian assistance to Gaza through UNRWA and other organizations, and we support a two-state solution in line with UN resolutions.
Looking to the situation on the ground, Hamas has returned the bodies of 2 deceased Israeli hostages on Thursday, in the first handover of hostages' bodies in 9 days. Blake Sifton has more on that in Tel Aviv.
Hamas returned the bodies of 2 deceased hostages to Israel on Thursday. Both were Israeli hostages who were taken from their communities near the Gaza border on October 7th and died in captivity. The return is the first time in 9 days that Hamas has returned hostage bodies. In exchange, the Israeli government returned 30 Palestinian bodies to Gaza on Friday. Now, with this return, 11 hostage bodies still remain in Gaza. That's of the 28 that were in Gaza at the time the ceasefire came into effect. The Israeli government says that Hamas knows where the majority of the hostage bodies are, and they have accused the group of violating the ceasefire by purposely delaying the return of the hostage bodies. Along with an attack on Israeli soldiers in Rafah, the slow pace of the return of the hostage bodies was part of the Israeli military's justification, the Israeli government's justification for a wave of airstrikes they carried out in Gaza on Tuesday and Wednesday. Local health officials say over 100 Palestinians were killed in those airstrikes. Now, Hamas says that they are doing everything they can to return the bodies quickly. They say they are buried under rubble and it will take time and heavy machinery to find them. In recent days, international teams from Egypt as well as the Red Cross have joined the search for bodies in Gaza. And there are reports that a Turkish team, an 80-strong Turkish team that are expert in recovering bodies from earthquakes, are standing by near Gaza to enter and to assist in the search, but they are still waiting for approval from Israeli authorities. Now, meanwhile, the umbrella group that represents the family members of the hostages held in Gaza, they have criticized the Israeli government for failing to explain why it is taking so long to return the bodies, and they have demanded an urgent meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Blake Sifton for A News in Tel Aviv.
Now for an update on the aftermath of Hurricane Melissa. One of the most powerful hurricanes to strike the Caribbean killed nearly 50 people, causing widespread destruction in Jamaica, Cuba, and Haiti. Search and rescue as well as recovery efforts are underway as the storm weakens and moves towards Bermuda.
Hurricane Melissa left a trail of destruction across the northern Caribbean this week, devastating parts of Jamaica, Cuba, and Haiti, before weakening over open waters on its way to Bermuda. In Jamaica, hospitals were damaged, power grids collapsed, and thousands were stranded after the Category 5 storm hit the island's southwest. Residents faced blocked roads, stranded communities, and long lines for scarce fuel as US rescue teams arrived to assist in recovery efforts, with damages estimated at $22 billion. The confirmed death toll from hurricane climbed to 49 on Thursday after wreaking destruction across much of the northern Caribbean. More than 70% of the island remained without power on Thursday morning. In eastern Cuba, residents in Santiago de Cuba cleared debris and patched roofs after heavy rain and strong winds. Authorities reported significant infrastructure and crop damage, but no fatalities after evacuating more than 700,000 people from vulnerable areas.
We've all finished cleaning up, and now we're going to start organizing the merchandise. After that, we'll open the doors to the public. For electricity, we're using the generator. With that, we've got all the fridges running, and we're cooling everything down so we can resume service.
Meanwhile, in Haiti, at least 25 people were killed and 12 reported missing, most in the coastal town of Petit Goâve, where flooding swept through homes after a river overflowed.
Hurricane Melissa, look what it has done to us. We are victims. We don't know what the situation is like in other areas. We are victims at the La Digue Bridge. We couldn't save anything we owned, not even our slippers and shoes. Everything is gone. I survived because I live on a higher hill.
As Melissa weakened to Category 1 late Thursday, forecasters said it would pass northwest of Bermuda. Across the Caribbean, from Kingston to Santiago de Cuba and Petit Goave, recovery was just beginning amid destroyed homes and widespread damage.
In other news, Brazil has begun preparations for the COP30 climate summit scheduled for next month. Security forces carried out large-scale exercises in Belém, including hostage rescue simulations and a mock bombing scenario at a shopping center. The drills were designed to train military police and emergency responders for potential crises during major international events. More than 7,000 personnel from the Army, Navy, and Air Force took part. Back to Europe, Dutch centrist party D66 won the most votes in Wednesday's general election, news agency ANP has said, putting its 38-year-old leader Rob Jetten on course to become the youngest ever prime minister in the Netherlands. With almost all votes counted, the pro-EU liberal D66 can no longer be overtaken by the far-right Freedom Party, led by anti-Islam populist Geert Wilders, according to the agency which collects the results from all municipalities in the Netherlands. D66 is now expected to take the lead in a first round of talks to form a coalition government, a process which usually takes months. Britain's King Charles has stripped his brother Andrew of all remaining royal titles, including the designation of prince. The move follows years of controversy over Andrew's ties with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein.
A family scandal turns into royal exile.
So what do you think about
King Charles has stripped his brother Andrew of every royal honour. Andrew will no longer use the title His Royal Highness or the designation of Prince in any official capacity. He will now be known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and will also leave his royal residence at the Royal Lodge. The decision, announced by Buckingham Palace, follows renewed pressure over Andrew's long-standing association with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The move has drawn a mixed response across Britain, but many Londoners largely welcomed the decision of Britain's King Charles.
He's representing the country and he's meant to be the face of England. Is this what we represent? Is this what the people represent? No, it's a disgrace. So I'm happy he's got stripped of his titles, his royal titles as well. He should be kicked out of the country because these guys live off us. We're the working class, we're the people in charge, basically.
I think it's fair. I also think that they should release the list. I also think that anyone who does quote-unquote unbecoming things deserves that kind of treatment, yeah.
It is not the first scandal of Andrew. His late mother, Queen Elizabeth II, stripped him of his patronages and military associations in 2022, making him a royal persona non grata. The decision occurred after the settlement of sex abuse lawsuit filed against him by Virginia Roberts Giuffre, who died by suicide in Australia earlier this year. Since then, the 65-year-old has only made public appearances at family events.
Still in the UK, London has added another name to its Iran sanctions list, this time targeting a prominent banker accused of funding the country's Revolutionary Guards. Our Zainab Farajzadeh has more.
Britain has announced new sanctions targeting an Iranian banker accused of helping fund Iran's Revolutionary Guards. Alek Ansari, a well-known banker and businessman, is now facing an asset freeze, a travel ban and a direct disqualification order under the UK's sanctions regime. The British government says Ansari financially supported activities linked to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, a branch of Iran's military that London accuses of destabilizing regional security. Ansari's addition to the sanctions list follows a series of similar measures imposed by the UK in recent months. Last year, Britain sanctioned several IRGC members and entities over their alleged support for Yemen's Houthi rebels. And earlier this year, London also targeted key Iranian military figures after Tehran launched missile and drone attacks against Israel in April. The Foreign Affairs says these steps are part of its continued efforts to curb Iran's regional influence and respond to what it calls malign activities carried out on behalf of the IRGC. Officials in Tehran have yet to respond to the latest move, but Iran has repeatedly dismissed Western sanctions as politically motivated and ineffective. Zeynep Ferazade, News, Manchester, United Kingdom.
A Turkish court sentenced 11 people to life in prison over a fire that killed 78 people at a ski resort in northwest Turkey's Bolu Mountains in January. The owner of the Grand Kartal Hotel was one of the 11 defendants given aggravated life sentences. 34 children were among those killed in the fire, which occurred during school holidays when many families from Istanbul and Ankara head to the Bolu Mountains to ski. More than 130 people were injured. The blaze in the 12-story building where 238 people were staying forced panicked hotel guests to jump from the windows. Georgia's EU candidate status has influenced Armenia's growing turn toward Europe, according to Armenia's Prime Minister. Nikol Pashinyan says his country was inspired by Georgia's EU candidate status granted in 2023. Our Nini Nikolashvili has more.
When Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan said Georgia's EU candidate status inspired Armenia's move to adopt a law on EU accession, he reflected a genuine shift in regional dynamics. Georgia's candidacy granted in late 2023 showed that closer integration with the European Union is achievable even in a region long influenced by Moscow. For Armenia, it offered a model of engagement based on institutional reform and trade access rather than military alignment. Since then, Pashinyan's government has signaled a gradual turn toward Europe, driven in part by frustration over Russia's declining security role. The law adopted by Armenian parliament on launching the country's accession process to the European Union marks the beginning of a measured reorientation from reliance on Moscow toward a Western framework. Azerbaijan, meanwhile, continues a pragmatic course, expanding energy and transport ties with Europe while avoiding the political commitments of deeper integration. For Russia, the trend is clear: continued pressure on Georgia through economic and political levers and growing irritation with Armenia's outreach to the West. Georgia remains cautious but firm in its European aspirations, while Armenia appears increasingly willing to test the similar ground. The South Caucasus is quietly changing. Georgia's EU candidacy not only advanced its own European path, but also reshaped the regional debate, introducing a new balance of influence across the region. Nini Nikolaishvili, Tbilisi, A-News.
Defense chiefs of CIS member states gathered in Almaty to talk on deepening military cooperation and enhancing regional stability. Our Fariza Kalimuzina has more.
In Almaty, the Council of Defense Ministers of the CIS member states held a meeting to discuss the development of multilateral military cooperation and measures to strengthen regional stability. Participants noted that amid a changing global order, cooperation within the CIS framework is becoming increasingly relevant. According to representatives of the organization, the architecture of international security is undergoing a period of transformation. Traditional institutions are losing influence, while new centers of power are shaping a multipolar system. In this context, Eurasia is increasingly viewed as one of the key regions where new mechanisms of international cooperation are emerging. Special attention at the meeting was given to the work of joint military systems, from air defense to coordinated responses to chemical, biological, and radiological threats. Ministers emphasized the need to modernize these systems and adapt them to evolving challenges. The discussions also covered military training and scientific cooperation in the defense field, including the exchange of best practices between Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, and Uzbekistan. Also, Kazakhstan signed a military cooperation plan with Russia and Belarus for the upcoming year. At the conclusion of the meeting, the Council of Defense Ministers reaffirmed its commitment to additional joint efforts aimed at strengthening national security across the CIS and maintaining stability throughout the Eurasian region. Fariza Kalimurzaina, Almaty, A News.
Uzbekistan is holding the UNESCO General Conference, bringing together representatives from about 190 countries. The conference aims to strengthen international dialogue on education, science, and culture. Our Sevil Rajapova has the details.
The conference has opened in the ancient city of Samarkand, marking the first time in 4 decades that UNESCO's main assembly is held outside Paris. More than 2,800 participants from 190 countries have gathered in Uzbekistan, united by shared commitment to preserve cultural and human heritage in the 21st century. President Shavkat Mirziyoyev delivered the opening address, joined by Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić and Slovak President Peter Pellegrini as honorary guests. The Uzbek leader proposed several initiatives, including the School of Artificial Intelligence, a UNESCO Academy for Women's Leadership, and a Green Capital program aimed at combining heritage preservation with innovation and sustainability. The conference also comes as UNESCO faces a period of global turbulence, with the United States planning to withdraw from the organization again by 2026. The forum will determine UNESCO's program and budget for 2027 and elect new leadership. The Samarkand session stands as a symbol of renewal and cooperation, reaffirming the global commitment to safeguard knowledge, culture, and shared human values. It is Sevil Rajapova reporting from Tashkent, Uzbekistan, A News.
That's all we have for you for now. Thank you so much for watching and stay tuned to A News.